So this is my Octagon deer blind. I've built a couple of them, mainly for when I bow hunt. This one's about 6 feet tall, 5 feet and a half on the inside and 6 feet wide. And I really like them for ground blinds. You'll notice I don't have the front door made yet, but I have the other windows. I don't have a window here as this is going to be next to the neighbor's property line. I always think it's better if they see that I'm not trying to hunt their property. I can watch the deer come around from here or here. I've struggled with finding good windows for a deer stand, so I just make my own. And I make them out of a lot of recycled lumber. I tore down a greenhouse. I had some 2x8s out of this is Western cedar, Western redwood, whatever you want to call it. And I glue and screwed this together with just regular wood glue. I say that because I love glue and screw and I love wood glue. I use drywall screws. They're a little smaller in diameter and they're a lot cheaper. And also all that's to do is to hold this in place. I drill pallet holes. If you don't use a pallet hole with the tapered bit, what can obviously happen is it'll split this wood. So use a pallet hole, take a little time. Once I've constructed my frame, I simply used a jig. And I had my sons help yesterday and we slid them in and then we screwed them in place. Before we screwed them in place, I love Gorilla epoxy glue. It does a couple things. One, it really holds it tight, but two, it'll also keep it airtight. You won't have any air that comes around. And at the top here, what we'll do is we'll put some here and I'll put a cross brace up the top. And again, that frame is not going anywhere. If you'll notice, I also did the sash at a beveled edge at top and bottom. And on the top, I'll put another piece of drip edge or something where the water will flow out. The windows are always one of the best things in a deer stand for comfort and accessibility to get your shot off, or if you need a little ventilation or whatever the case may be. So I mentioned we built these windows, and first thing we built a window frame. So I numbered the windows as you're going through it. Number one, it's Octagon, 8 sides. So number your windows, number your stuff, it'll make it a lot better in the end. Here is a completed window, and if you notice it has number 2 on it, including the glass. I believe I mentioned that I took old storm windows and I just literally have a glass cutter and I cut them to the right dimension. The groove inside it is about 1/4 of an inch deep. And then of course, these are screwed together with 2 pilot holes. And I'll show you how we did this. This is very important because you'll split it. Also, as much as I love gluing and screwing, I don't glue my windows. Sooner or later, something may happen and break a window frame, and I may have to unscrew it and replace it. So that's why I didn't do it. Here we have, right over here, one we're fixing to assemble. And what I do is I've even used, I don't know about you guys, but I use my table saw for a regular working table. So I've already tinted these last night. I'm gonna slide it in the groove. Get it kind of positioned like I need. Also had to glue this one together. If it's not centered, make sure you have the right height. And then once you get it all pieced together, another thing I want you to see is I've actually beveled the edge of my windows. So when they open and shut, it shuts pretty tight on it. Now that it's get together, here's the critical part. Like I said, you really need to make sure that you drill it with pilot holes. That's a pretty good sized bit, as you'll notice, but the last thing you want to do is all these efforts on your windows and then they split and you're starting all over. Plus it's not a strong window. Make sure it's all in square. I'm using the table saw edge to give me something to press against. Now that I've done that, I'm actually going to pull this piece right back off, because if you'll notice, it's not going very deep. I want the drill bit to go a little bit deeper than that on my windows. Not much, but I can go another 1/2 inch, and then it won't split. So after several back and forths, and I realize I've misaligned it, we're going to do something different. We're actually going to, because these windows are universal, we're just going to flip it 180. We're going to do it this way. Notice I put a shim at the bottom, keep it from dragging and opening and closing. And I got another shim that I can probably wedge in here. There we go. I'll take that shim out, it'll be better. Now, my hinges should line up better, and let's see if we can do a little bit better job at getting these hinges on. The hinges, if you'll notice, they actually want to turn in like this. So you got to be careful when you're doing it. You might have to actually go to left of center just a little bit. Let's try it on the first one, just get a little bit of a pilot hole started and see what we can come up with. See, watch this hinge and see if it flattens out. If you'll notice when it flattened out, it pushed the window to the right just a little bit. And that was what was throwing me off that I should have watched for the last time. I'm gonna come up here to the top. I didn't like the way that hole lined up, so we're gonna try this one. If you notice, I just pulled the hinge a little bit. And I lost my bit. All right, one screw in the bottom, one screw in the top. Let's see if we get this thing on. All right, take the wedge out. Let's see what we got. Now we have a window up, and you just saw this right here. I've got another trick for that I'm going to show you. Cut. So I told you windows are kind of tricky, and so I hope you use some of these hints, but right here, it's still rubbing, but I've got it lined pretty well, so I'm just going to go and take my little planer here, take a little bit off. I'll even scoot some on the top. If you'll notice, it didn't take much and I adjusted it. I still have a latch to put on. You can do a couple of different things on hat latches. We'll see what I come up with. I want to show you one thing on the outside that I think is going to be very beneficial.
Okay.
So another thing we'll do, this is where the window is going to stop. Once I get it latched on the inside, is I'll take this redwood western cedar and I'll put it right against the window. And I'll take my brad nailer here, just my air finish nailer, brad nailer, and just put some small tacks into that. I'll do it all the way. I'll have a fitted piece that goes all the way to the bottom, and I'll have a fitted piece across the top. Now, I won't have one on the bottom. If you're saying, well, why not? It's because eventually this will get water and rain, and when it hits there, I want it to be able to roll out. That means there'll be a very slight gap of air underneath it. On the back side, if you want, you could put a little piece of rubber molding, and I probably will, but I'll keep this open on the bottom for the water to flow out. So we've about got the windows finished, and I showed you that I made some trim to go up and around it. That'll keep the air from seeping in, or most of it. I told you I wasn't putting a piece at the bottom, that I'd do something different. That way the rain hits it, water it rolls out, and here's what I did. This is rubber molding that goes underneath a garage door, I believe, and I just cut it in a strip. 3 screws with some flare fenders, and obviously I do have to take my little fingers and just kind of pull it down when I shut my window, and it seals it off. I'll use a couple of cabinet handles to have something to open, and I'll use some kind of little board or something to turn it or put a latch on it. Heck, this may hold it pretty good, but that's the windows. They're complete. I made a shelf here. I'll probably put another little shelf here or there, and I'll put a couple of shelves up here. I'll put a long shelf probably across here at the top just to hold my gear and such. A couple of hooks. About ready to do the exterior and the roof, and we're getting real close to being done. So stay tuned. I'll show you what that looks like soon.